All right, so get this. 1939, the world's on edge. Hitler's,
Yeah.
making moves,
Right
and
on.
all of a sudden a British king and queen
Wow.
pop over to the U.S. for a visit.
Wow.
But it wasn't just any visit.
Yeah.
It was the first time a reigning monarch ever stepped foot on American soil.
Huge.
Talk about pressure, right?
Yeah.
Today we're going to unpack whether this visit,
Okay.
full of these surprising moments like hot dogs being served on silver platters, actually changed the course of history.
So what's really crucial to remember here is the context.
Okay.
Just a few years earlier, King Edward VIII caused a scandal by abdicating the throne, leaving his brother Albert to become King George VI.
Wow.
A man kind of thrust onto the world stage
Yeah.
with a very real threat of war looming over Europe.
Talk about trial by fire.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just a crown he inherited,
Right.
but like a whole heap of global anxieties, right?
Right.
So knowing that, how did America react? Weren't we pretty isolationist back then?
That's what makes the welcome so remarkable.
Okay.
Washington, D.C., New York City, massive crowds.
Wow.
A genuine outpouring of excitement.
Really?
It seems the visit tapped into this
Like a share.
shared feeling,
Okay.
that something big was on the horizon.
Yeah.
There's even this powerful image of Queen Elizabeth singing the American national anthem
Wow.
with tears in her eyes.
That's an image that really sticks with you.
Yeah.
But we have to ask,
Sure.
was this just a PR stunt or was there a deeper strategy at play here?
President Roosevelt was anything but naive.
Right.
He knew the importance of a U.S.-UK alliance,
Okay.
especially with war on the horizon.
Yeah.
This visit was carefully orchestrated to lay the groundwork for future cooperation.
So not just a photo op then.
No.
But how do you go from formal receptions
Right.
to actually solidifying an alliance? Enter the hot dog lunch.
Ah, yes, the infamous hot dog lunch at FDR's Hyde Park estate.
Okay.
On the surface, it seems like an odd choice.
Yeah.
Casual American cuisine
Right.
for royalty.
Yeah.
But this was a calculated move
Okay.
to demonstrate
Sure.
shared Anglo-American culture and create a more relaxed setting for these crucial discussions.
See, this is where things get really interesting for me.
Okay.
Was serving hot dogs a stroke of genius or a potential diplomatic disaster waiting to happen?
Right.
What if the Queen had been offended?
It was certainly a gamble,
Yeah.
but FDR was a master of reading people.
Okay.
He must have sensed the Queen's pragmatism
Yeah.
and her understanding of the bigger picture. Plus, it achieved what he intended.
Okay.
The Queen herself noted the informality of the lunch,
Really?
seeing it as a microcosm of American democracy in action.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So hot dogs aside, what were the tangible outcomes of the Hyde Park meetings?
Two critical agreements came out of those discussions.
Okay.
First, the Destroyers for Bases deal, where the U.S. transferred 50 aging destroyers to Britain
Okay.
in exchange for access to British bases.
Hold on. Wasn't the U.S. officially neutral at this point? How did they get around that?
It was a clever workaround
Okay.
and a vital one for Britain, bolstering their naval defenses without technically violating the Neutrality Act.
All right. So that's one.
Yeah.
What was the other agreement?
The groundwork was laid for the Lend-Lease program,
Right.
which would later allow the U.S. to lend war materials to Britain without immediate payment.
Okay.
Essentially a lifeline for Britain as war engulfed Europe.
So beneath the friendly smiles and hot dog lunches, a crucial wartime alliance was being forged.
Right.
But let's not forget about Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
She was reading Mein Kampf on the boat over, right?
She was.
Why on earth would she do that?
It wasn't light reading, that's for sure.
No.
But it reveals her intelligence and foresight. She wanted to understand the mind of the man who posed such a threat to the world.
Yeah.
The Queen was clearly more than just a figurehead, actively engaging with the complex realities of the situation.
And her insights likely played a role in how she interacted with FDR,
Yeah.
perhaps even influencing the course of those crucial discussions.
It's a possibility worth considering.
Right.
Remember, this visit was about more than just a king and a president. It was about a royal couple,
Yeah.
each with their own understanding of the stakes involved.
Okay, so we've got a tense global backdrop, a calculated diplomatic mission,
Right.
and a surprising hot dog lunch that somehow helped lay the foundation for a wartime alliance.
Yeah.
But was this visit truly a turning point in history?
Right.
Or just a blip on the radar?
Good question.
We'll continue unpacking that question in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good. It's fascinating to consider how this visit, hot dogs and all,
Right.
might have shifted the course of events.
Yeah.
But you can't deny the impact it had on cementing that U.S.-UK alliance,
Okay.
especially in light of what came next.
Right, because just a few months later, war did break out. How did that change the dynamic between King George and FDR?
The pressure intensified, no doubt.
Yeah.
Britain was facing the Nazi war machine head-on,
Right.
and American support became vital.
Okay.
Yet the U.S. was officially neutral,
Right.
which must have been incredibly frustrating for the king.
I can only imagine the tension.
Yeah.
Needing someone's help to survive, but not being able to force their hand.
Right.
It's a delicate situation.
It is, and the king,
Yeah.
despite his reserved nature,
Okay.
did express that frustration in private diaries and letters.
Really?
He was human, after all,
All right.
dealing with an immense burden.
It's a good reminder that behind the titles and the crowns,
Yeah.
there are real people grappling with extraordinary circumstances.
Absolutely. And on the American side,
Yeah.
FDR was walking a tightrope.
Okay.
Isolationist sentiment was strong, but he still managed to find ways to support Britain,
Yeah.
first with the destroyer deal,
Okay.
and then, crucially, with Lend-Lease.
Lend-Lease was controversial, wasn't it?
Hugely.
Okay.
Some saw it as overstepping presidential authority.
Yeah.
But for Britain, those ships, weapons, and supplies were a lifeline.
Right.
It's hard to overstate the program's significance in those early years when Britain stood alone against the Nazi onslaught.
Okay, so Lend-Lease helped keep Britain afloat. But what about the human element?
Yeah.
Did the personal bond between the king and FDR survive the pressures of war?
From what we can gather, yes.
Okay.
They continued corresponding,
Yeah.
sharing anxieties and hopes in a way that transcended the formality of their positions.
Okay.
You see it in their letters,
Yeah.
addressing each other in surprisingly informal terms,
Really?
almost like old friends.
It goes to show that diplomacy isn't just about signing treaties.
Right.
It's about forging genuine connections.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about Queen Elizabeth's role.
Okay.
We often focus on the king and FDR,
Right.
but she was actively involved too, wasn't
Right.
she?
Without a doubt. Her reading of Mein Kampf shows a woman who wasn't just going through the motions.
Right.
She was actively seeking to understand the world and the threats it faced.
Yeah.
Then there's that story about her addressing American women via radio,
Okay.
expressing gratitude for their support of the war effort.
So she was more than just a symbol.
Yeah.
She was actively shaping public opinion,
Right.
even during a time when women's roles in diplomacy were often overlooked.
Exactly. It makes you wonder how history might have played out differently without her contributions.
Right.
But even beyond the war years, this 1939 visit had a lasting cultural impact.
Right, because this wasn't just about wartime alliances.
Yeah.
It was the first time a reigning British monarch had ever set foot on American soil.
Right.
That must have sent ripples through American culture.
Absolutely. It was a media sensation,
Okay.
with newspapers and radio broadcasts capturing every detail.
Wow.
For many Americans, it was like a real-life fairy tale unfolding before their eyes.
So on one hand, you have this backdrop of global tension and the looming threat of war.
Yeah.
On the other, you have this almost surreal image of a king and queen visiting the World's Fair in New York.
Right.
Talk about a jarring contrast.
It was a deliberate effort to present a more modern, approachable image of the monarchy.
Okay.
And it worked.
Yeah.
It sparked a fascination with British royalty that continues to this day.
Okay, so we've talked about the political maneuvering, the wartime alliance, and even the cultural impact of this visit.
Right.
But you know what really gets me?
What's that?
That hot dog lunch.
I have to admit, it's an image that sticks with you.
Right. You have this incredibly formal setting,
Yeah.
these high-stakes diplomatic discussions, and then hot dogs. It seems almost absurd, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that's part of its brilliance. That simple act of serving American cuisine,
Right.
even something as humble as a hot dog,
Yeah.
helped break down barriers and create a sense of common ground. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about FDR's understanding of human nature
Okay.
and his masterful use of symbolism.
It makes you wonder if that lunch, as unconventional as it was,
Yeah.
played a role in fostering the trust and rapport
Right.
that ultimately helped forge the special relationship between the U.S. and the U.K.
It's a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
Maybe history wouldn't have unfolded quite the same way without those hot dogs on silver platters.
Wow.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We still need to unpack some key takeaways
Right.
and see if this visit really lives up to its historical hype.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, you know. A king and queen facing incredible pressure.
Yeah.
A savvy president, you know, orchestrating this strategic visit.
Hmm.
Hot dogs on silver platters, but
Right.
let's step back and think about what it all means, you know.
Okay.
Was this 1939 visit really a turning point?
Hmm.
Or are we giving it too much credit?
It's the question at the heart of our deep dive, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer, as with most historical events,
Right.
is complex.
Okay.
We can't say with absolute certainty what would have happened if the king and queen hadn't made that trip.
Right.
But we can look at the evidence
Yeah.
and see the visit's undeniable ripple effect.
Right, like the Lend-Lease program, which arguably wouldn't have existed without the groundwork laid during those meetings.
Right. And beyond the tangible outcomes,
Yeah.
there's the intangible.
Okay.
The strengthening of the special relationship between the U.S. and U.K.
Right.
A phrase Churchill coined later,
Yeah.
but a bond clearly forged during this visit.
And it wasn't just a political bond,
No.
right? There was a cultural exchange happening too. This fascination with royalty colliding with American democratic ideals.
Absolutely. You had Americans who remembered the revolution, you know, skeptical of any monarchy.
Right.
But then you had those captivated by the spectacle.
Right.
By the idea of a king and queen walking among them.
Yeah.
It was a cultural collision in the best sense of the word.
It's funny, we keep coming back to that hot dog lunch.
Yeah.
It seems so trivial,
right?
Yet it keeps popping up as a symbol of something bigger.
It's more than just a funny anecdote.
Okay.
It represents FDR's awareness of the need to connect on a human level.
Yeah.
To find common ground.
Right.
Even with something as simple as food.
It makes me think about the Queen's observation that the lunch was like a microcosm of American democracy. Here she was, royalty, in this relaxed setting, dignitaries and staff mingling freely.
Yeah.
It must have challenged her perceptions of power and leadership.
We often forget that these figures were also individuals,
right,
shaped by their experiences, and forced to adapt to unprecedented situations.
Yeah.
The Queen especially often gets overshadowed.
Yeah.
But her insights and actions, like reading Mein Kampf, to understand the enemy, reveal her depth.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about grand pronouncements from leaders.
Right.
It's about the choices individuals make, the conversations they have, the unexpected moments that taken together shape the course of events.
Precisely. So while we can't definitively say the 1939 visit single-handedly changed history, it's clear that it played a significant role in shaping the world we live in today.
And that's what makes history so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's not always about clear-cut answers. It's about exploring those complexities and recognizing the impact of seemingly small actions.
Exactly. It's about understanding the human element that drives those big historical moments and appreciating the ripple effects that continue to this day.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this.
Okay.
Next time you encounter a historical event, don't just skim the surface.
Yeah.
Dig deeper, consider the motivations, the personalities, even the seemingly trivial details.
Right.
You might be surprised at what you discover.
Because sometimes those small details, like a hot dog lunch, reveal a deeper truth about the forces that shape our world.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep connecting the dots.
Farewell.